Good morning, all. It's now 7:30 on May 23rd,
Hello.
2024.
Yes.
Jen?
Yes, Jen, did you have something to say?
No, sorry, I'm on the phone with Derek trying to log in.
Oh.
I'll mute.
All right, again, this is a meeting of the Board of Public Works for May 23rd, 2024. This meeting is being recorded. Take a roll call of members. Mr. LaBelle?
Yeah.
Mr. Alves?
Yeah.
Chairman is present, so we have all board members present and accounted for. First order of business is to approve and accept warrants. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve and accept the warrants for the bills payable period ending April 22nd and 29th and May 6th and 13th of 2024.
Motion by Mr. LaBelle. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Alves. Take a roll call vote. Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Mr. Alves?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Approved. Second item is to approve and accept payrolls.
Motion to approve and accept the payrolls for the weeks ending April 27th and May 4th and 11th of 2024.
I have a motion by Mr. LaBelle to approve and accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Alves. Roll call vote. Mr. Alves?
Aye.
Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Item is approved. Next item is to approve and accept meeting minutes from March 28th, April
Motion.
25th, and May 6th. So
Motion
let's
to
take
approve.
these in order if there are any comments. Do I have any comments for March 28th?
Oh, sorry.
I have a couple of comments. The first is on page 4 under committee updates. I believe there is a grammatical error in the 4th line of the first paragraph. It should read, Mr. Barber stated an out of class form was sent to town hall. And at the bottom of that page, I believe the vote should read 2-0 rather than 201. There were no abstentions. We had a quorum, but only 2 members present. Those are my suggested changes. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of March 28th? I believe, Mr. Alves, that would be you and me.
Yes. So I'll make a motion to approve and accept the meeting minutes from March 28th. Based off of your comments.
Mr. Alves has moved. The chairman seconds. Roll call, Mr. Alves.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Minutes are approved as modified. Next are April 25th, 2024. Does any of the board members have any comments?
I do not.
I believe I wasn't there, Robert. So.
Correct. Mr. Rollins. Mr. Rollins is with us. He's with Weston Sampson. They've completed a study. And can you spell the last name of the other company, please? Is it Abrams?
Yeah, we have Matt here today too. His last name is on the screen. I'll let him speak to his last name spelling. Go for it.
Good morning.
Maybe, oh, there it is. Okay.
Abraham's the Abrams Group, so it's ABRA.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to check so we get precise spelling in the minutes. In these minutes, the S is missing off of Mr. Abrams' name. Abraham's with an S. Okay. So that's the only change I have. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes of April 25th, 2024 with corrections as stipulated.
All right, so I have motion by Mr. LaBelle. The chair seconds. Roll call vote. Mr. LaBelle
Aye.
votes aye. Minutes are approved. Do I have any comments on the minutes of May 6th?
I do not.
I do not. So I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of the meeting May 6th, 2024.
Mr. LaBelle moves approval. The chair seconds the motion. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is an executive session to consider a personnel matter, grievance
Mr.
of a
Chairman.
senior clerk.
I have a question. I would ask that we hear the grievance second, and since Weston, Ben and Stephanie are here from Weston and Sampson, and Matt Abrahams are here from the Abrahams group to present on the rates, I ask that we move them out of order and let them present, and they can go back to their work.
Are there any comments by board members to move item old business A ahead of the executive session? Do I have any comments?
No.
All right, if that's acceptable, we'll go directly to old business, item A, discussion of utility rates.
And also, Mr. Chairman, I just want to confirm that you did mention that this meeting is being recorded correctly.
I believe I did,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
You did.
Okay. So, Ben, if you'd like to kick it off.
I would be happy to. Yeah, thanks for letting us skip ahead here. And yeah, we do have other fun work to get to. So thanks for letting us skip ahead here. Looks like the host has disabled sharing. Can we disable so I can start sharing my screen?
Yep, give me 1 second.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to kick it off anyways here before I get my PowerPoint running. So this is the third month in a row we've been here. So thanks again for inviting us back to discuss water and sewer rates. We're here. This is the first phase of a two-phase project. We have other subdivisions we're looking at after. Okay, thank you. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Yep. All right. Can you guys see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, so like I mentioned, this is a two-phase project here. The other phase, after we square away water and sewer rate discussion, we're going to be looking into the other subdivisions: administration, engineering, highways, snow and ice, solid waste recycling, and transfer station, and then fleet management as the other subdivisions. And we'll do an evaluation and provide recommendations later on in phase two. So a reminder on our rate study objectives here, we're hoping to recommend a rate increase for the next 5-year window that will generate sufficient funds for the town to be able to implement its high priority capital improvements plans, and also hit a target retained earnings of 15%. And we just really want to look at the capital plans, both water and sewer, which of these are high priority and which of these should be funded. And my last point here, we would recommend reducing the reliance on New Bedford Water, purchasing water from New Bedford via the Fons Corner pump station. In 2022, Weston and Sampson, together with Dartmouth, completed a full water system evaluation that included a holistic review of both water quality and quantity. So we looked at the water from Dartmouth's own sources, 299 and 687 Chase Road water treatment plants, as well as 579 Old Westport Road water treatment plant, as well as water purchased from the city of New Bedford. So we did a full sampling program that lasted about a year or so. We did hydraulic modeling with Stantec, and we also looked at other information and data provided to us from the town. One of the major findings of this evaluation was the water from the city of New Bedford was relatively worse in water quality, as they came in higher for disinfection byproducts, specifically total trihalomethanes and haliacetic acids. So both the TTHMs and HA5s came in at around close to the MCL of 80 and 60 parts per billion. So already relatively high compared to Dartmouth's own sources. And it's in general, as water quality, as water age increases, the disinfection byproduct concentration typically increases as well. So if it's entering at a near the MCL, it's likely to get worse from there. Also, on the different side of the same coin, the water purchased from New Bedford, these are 2022 numbers, so I'll kick it to Tim and Steve to update me here, but the cost per million gallons from New Bedford in 2022 per the annual agreement was $8,785, while the town estimated back in 2022 that it costs around $800-ish per million gallons to produce. This is all to say that the solution isn't really to simply ignore the improvements needed to the town sources and infrastructure and distribution networks. Instead, it should raise rates and spend the necessary funds to improve its infrastructure to avoid paying higher bills to somebody else in the future. And I'll throw a pin in here. Steve and Tim have done a pretty incredible job over the past 2-3 years, just that we've been working together. They've improved the water quality to its consumers. Excuse me. And they need some backup here and support from the town to increase these rates to continue pushing these necessary infrastructure projects forward. And one final note here that I'd like to make, it's kind of a proactive versus reactive approach right now. Right now, we're trying to proactively plan for and fund the next 5 to 10 years worth of capital improvements projects to maintain the infrastructure. In this is in direct comparison of say a reactive approach where the infrastructure fails certain points in the systems, and the town will then need to pull from its retained earnings or pull from its funds somehow at a higher cost, most likely to immediately rectify the emergency. This slide is unchanged. I think you've all seen this before, but just a comparison of Dartmouth's water and sewer bill. Water bill is on the left, sewer bill is on the right-hand side here. These are 2023, and these are average semi-annual bills. So Dartmouth, for a water bill, is paying around $250 in 2023 per semi-annual bill, compared to its similarly sized and nearby public water suppliers. So you can see Norton over here up to $420 as compared to Dartmouth's $250. And then also on the sewer side, Dartmouth at $250 per semi-annual bill compared to, say, Attleboro, New Bedford, and Attleboro at $400 to $500 compared to Dartmouth's $250. So there is room to grow as speaking about rates. And last time, Rob, you mentioned that you wanted us to look into the costs associated with the wastewater treatment facility, and rightfully so. That's a massive project. So I'm going to kick it over to Tim here, just to kind of give an update on that.
Okay, so after the last meeting, we went back to the drawing board. We met together and discussed adding some costs towards updating, increasing capacity here at the wastewater treatment facility. And, we looked at a $50 million project and how that would affect the borrowing. And so we looked at borrowing for 30 years at a 2% rate and how that would affect the rates going forward. If we did that project in 4 years from now, how it would affect at that point. And then we also decided that it'd probably be best to expand the effect on the rates and projected rates increases for 10 years to see how that would look over a 10-year span. So Matt and Ben's group and Stephanie, they did a good job in putting that together and in quick timing and turned it around for this presentation.
Thanks, Tim. So I'll kick it over to Matt here now to jump in on the background of the water, and then we do show that 50 million price tag in the sewer section. So we'll get through the water here first, and then we can talk through the 50 million price tag later on.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ben. Good morning. This is Matt Abrahams from the Abrahams Group. Going to run through some slides for you here related to water rates initially and then sewer rates to follow. Slides are similar, and if you've been on our past presentations, these will look familiar, but they have changed a little bit. As Tim just mentioned a moment ago, we've started to look at rates from a larger scale standpoint, meaning instead of looking at a 5-year look into the window, we've now expanded that out to look at 10 years. On the sewer side, it made a lot of sense because of the inclusion of the $50 million project that Tim just mentioned a while ago. And we also thought that it made sense to do so on the water side too. By stretching things out to 10 years, it allowed us to stretch out the capital plan over a longer period of time as well. And by working with Tim and his team, we thought that meant that some of the larger scale projects, the timing of those would be better in a 10-year scenario. So we're presenting both to you here for water, the initial 5-year look, including all the high priority items, and then including the same high priority items, plus slightly more over a 10-year look, just so you can compare the two. Once we get to sewer, it's only a 10-year look at this point because of the impact of that $50 million project. That's just some quick background before I get into these slides. So here's the background slide on water. Regrouping on some of these items. Recent rate action, 4% increase for FY23. For FY24, rates were increased by 5%, and the minimum usage amount decreased. We've covered New Bedford a little bit, but there's been some high costs in recent years, including $1.8 million for FY23. It's currently budgeted at 1.4 for FY24 and FY25, despite New Bedford's rates increasing 8.5% for FY25, but the budget did not change. Debt service today, $846,000 for water in FY24, just over $1 million for FY25. Existing debt, that's debt on your books today, is set to slowly decrease as we move forward year over year. But, and this is a huge part of our discussion with the work that we're doing related to rates, what does the potential new debt tied to the capital plan look like? We've projected that for you based on the scenarios that I've mentioned, the 5-year look and the 10-year look.
Sorry to interrupt. If I get about 15 minutes at least before I am heard.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. No capital is funded for 24. $250,000 was approved for FY25. The look that we're doing is looking beyond that. So if we're including the high priority items over the 5-year look, you're looking at about $1.3 million in retained earnings over the 5 years being spent, and an additional amount of $18 million to be borrowed, which once it's fully borrowed, would work out to be about $1.7 million annually in additional debt. So that 1.7 would get added to the 1 million that we're talking about here up above for the existing debt service to complete your full debt picture. If expanded out over 10 years, that's the bottom part of the slide. We've put back in some additional items related to retained earnings over the 10-year look. So now it's up to 1.5 in total retained earnings spent over that period of time, plus about 22 million in additional borrowings, which once fully borrowed works out to be about $1.8 million annually. And again, that would be added to your existing debt total to equal your total debt. And we'll get a little bit further into the details related to the capital plan on the subsequent slides. Ben, next slide. Thank you. So these slides have not changed. If you've seen our recent presentations, the left-hand slide is the slide on the left is looking at your recent financial results for water, including a projection for the current fiscal year of FY24. If it's up, that means a surplus. If it's down, that means a deficit. So we're projecting a fairly modest surplus, but a surplus for FY24. That looks to be just under $400,000. The graph on the right is looking at your retained earnings certification for water compared to what we consider the target to be, which is 15% of total expenses. And you can see that the blue, which is your actual certifications, was well above the target for a few years there and has worked its way now below the target, including our most recent projection for the end of this fiscal year, where it's fairly below that red line to the far right of that graph. Next slide. Baseline projections, this is our do nothing. So in other words, what this means is we've included everything. We've included all your revenues. We've included all of your expenses. Although this particular scenario was one we put together at the start of our work, and we assume no additional capital work here. So this is simply just showing that if you were to not invest in capital, what do you need, or what happens just to maintain your operating budget? But this also means this shows no rate change, which is, probably not reality. But we just wanted to show you what it would look like if you were not to change rates. And you can see that your retained earnings falls off pretty quick. There is not enough to even get through the next fiscal year of FY25. And that is only to cover your operating portion of your budget, let alone the important capital that we have as part of the plan. So here's our rate plan, and we have presented rate plans to you before. This one is slightly different, and the reason why is because we went back and we spoke about what we consider to be high priority capital that Tim and his team feel like should be authorized to be included in for future capital authorizations. And we've included all of those for you here just to show you what the rate impact would be, projected rate impact would be. So that includes, again, this is a refresher from the prior slide, 1.3 in additional retained earnings spending plus $18 million in borrowing, which that's the total borrowing amount. The per year amount was 1.7, like I showed you on the prior slide. We have the blue going above the orange in this 5-year look, but that's intentional because we did a 5-year look. We're not including the next fiscal year, which is FY30, but there's additional debt that would come on in FY30 based on the capital plan. So we wanted to start to account for that. And that's why you see the blue above the orange here, to be able to have ample retained earnings to fund that additional expense in the next year. And we think in order to accomplish this, you're looking at rate changes that are 8.75. That's an annual increase in order to make this happen over the next 5 years and fully fund what we consider to be high priority capital. And this is part of the 5-year plan. The subsequent slide is going to show similar setup, but we've expanded it out over 10 years. So as I mentioned earlier, we spent some time reworking the capital plan, same capital plan, but just expanding out some of the projects into future years to allow the town, some additional time to get to those projects and work on them. But also, as you're aware, with inflation, those project costs go up the longer period of time that elapses before those projects are taken on. So we've also factored that in. So please be aware of that. But what this means is with the longer plan, we're looking at $1.5 million in total retained earnings, total borrowing of $22 million, but once that's fully borrowed, that works out to be 1.8 annually, as we discussed earlier. And now the plan is shown this way. So over 10 years, we think the town could increase rates at 7.5% annually that's a 7-year period, before the increases become what I'll call more nominal, 5.5. Now that's way in the future, so it's very hard to project what it's going to look like 10 years from now. But based on the information that we currently have, we think a rate plan like this makes sense in order to fully fund the high priority capital work over a 10-year period rather than the 5-year period, where if you're looking at it from a 5-year look, there's definitely a more aggressive timeline there to get those things done. And we also provide, this is a new slide we put together for you, what we have included for each of these capital plan looks, both the 5-year look and the 10-year look, and the columns are aligned so you can easily compare them. So one of the examples of a project getting moved under the 10-year scenario is that raw water main improvements 299 line. You can see in the 5-year plan, that's part of the FY28 column, whereas in the 10-year plan, we have it as part of the FY29 column, and the dollars are increased there to show the inflationary rate that we're including to do that. And then another example is the treatment plant clear well storage tank 299 went from FY29 to FY31. So that's a 2-year bump out in that case. And also please be aware that we've included rows here for PFAS treatment, both design and construction, in both of these tables. And I believe that those costs were actually not part of the prior runs that we did. So that's new information that has been included in our presentation and the work that we did very recently and this presentation that was not in the prior presentations that we did for you. And this is a comparative slide of what we have as projected bills related to those rate plans I showed that we looked at a moment ago. Option 1, 8.75% annually. We have that as a $24 increase per bill for the next fiscal year of FY25 and $144 over the 5-year plan, 5-year window for the average residential family. And those numbers are highlighted in red. For option 2, which again is the 10-year look, but we've only included 5 years of bills here, so they can easily be compared. 7.5% annual increase for 7 years, but the 1-year impact is $20 per bill for the average residential family and $121 over the 5-year span. And now we're moving on to sewer, but let's pause for a moment in case there are any questions or comments on water.
Board members, any questions or comments on the water analysis? Hearing none, I actually do have a couple. Tim, is there anything in our current sampling that suggests we're going to be faced with treating for PFAS?
Well, they did come down with some PFAS regulations,
Right.
and we're in that range, and on a couple areas, and other areas we're below. So I think it would be best to budget for future treatment.
All right. So
to make sure that we can keep all of our wells functioning online.
All right, but it's possible that depending on the circumstances, we could adjust our sources and blend at least for a while and put off the PFAS? Or is that not feasible given our sources? Maybe that's a different question.
I think our sources for each treatment facility, you may be able to blend, but you wouldn't be able to blend, like the Violetta wells with the ABC wells.
Right. Yeah, we don't have the facilities to do that. All right. So my next question is, what is the effect of these capital upgrades on purchasing water from New Bedford? And if there is a potential reduction in those purchases, basically, is that year 3, year 5, year 7?
So the first large capital project includes work at the 579 treatment facility, and we're hoping that work allows us to put all of our Pinelli wells back online, and we can have our own water in the system and purchase less water from the city at that point. Once all those wells are online.
And that would have an additional benefit. We haven't assumed a reduction in those purchases.
Yes, that's correct. That would
Correct.
have the
Okay,
diesel
that's
bill.
fine. That means it's a conservative analysis.
Yeah.
All right, and then, Tim, how are those projects being funded, those initial water projects? Are those the ARPA project funding?
Yeah, that first project we're proposing for ARPA, and Weston Sampson is currently working on that design and a cost estimate so we can submit to ARPA
All right,
in the really near future,
okay,
like a week or two. Yep.
all right, thank you.
You're
That's all,
welcome.
those are all my questions.
Rob,
Yeah,
this is Gary. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Gary. Thanks for joining us.
Can I ask you a question to the?
Absolutely. By the way, I think this ought to be discussed with the town administration and then quite probably with the Board of Selectmen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The question I had was these rate increases, and this is for each unit for water, sewer, and so on and so forth. Are these just rate increases to get us through the capital portion, or is this rate increases for capital and operations?
It's for both. It includes everything.
Oh, okay, it's for both. Okay, thank you.
And Rob, I tell you, we discussed presenting at a select board meeting in the near future as well. So
Yeah.
we wanted to get through this presentation, and then if there are any comments on any revisions before we do that, we would make those updates and then move forward with presenting to the town administration.
Yeah, I would like to make every effort that the board sees this before we consider formally adopting rates for next year.
Tim,
Okay.
this is Ron.
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. What's the timeline for improvements on the Veneta wells that will add additional volumes? And do you have an estimate of how much that will reduce the need to purchase water from New Bedford?
So the timeline, I believe, is it end of 2005 or 2006, Ben?
So this question, so we're talking about the construction of
579.
579 Old
Correct.
Westport. And so yes, so our construction, we're on a tight line here to get the ARPA funds. So like Tim mentioned, I'll do a brief schedule here. So we got to get costs into ARPA, the Bristol County ARPA section by latest end of June. But like Tim said, we're shooting for the next couple weeks or so, depending on some information we need to get back. But then the next deadline we need to hit is signed contracts with the general contractor by end of this year. So December 31st, 2024. That's when we need to have signed contracts to be able to tell ARPA, yep, we're moving forward. And then our construction period is estimated to be a year and a half to just under 2 years or so. So we're looking at construction startup probably end of 2026.
Okay, and is there an estimate of how that increases volume? That will reduce the need to purchase water from New Bedford. So we're looking at a 2-year window. And what's the ultimate result? What's the positive on this?
I see Steve unmuted. You got some numbers for us, Steve?
Yeah, I'm just looking at our previous usages in the city of New Bedford. Normally, we're in like the 13% of our water we pump from the city in a normal year. After the last 3 years, we're in the 24 to 48% of our water. So that's with losing the Pinelli wells and a couple of other wells that went down during the summer time, Ron. So
Yeah.
We should be back to that where we were. I mean, of course, the rates for the city has gone up, but if we can get back to pumping our own water, it's a lot cheaper.
So that would get you back to 13%? Is that the way I understand?
Somewhere in that area, from 13 to 17% compared to being in the 20 to 40% range.
So, okay, all right, that's a big deal.
One more thing, if I may, everyone, Mr. LaBelle. So the one positive about this project is we're going to be including storage volume for what's called CT, and that's chlorine contact time. So the Pinelli wells are down right now because of bacterial hits, and the treatment plant can't be turned on until that is rectified. So as part of this project, we will be designing and constructing a CT storage tank, which will provide the chlorine contact time to be able to provide 4-log treatment of these viruses. So if a hit is ever found in the system again, then this system has this water treatment plant has the required CT and will be able to continue to run, which is great news for the town.
And I might just jump in and say, not the treatment plant, but the wells can't be turned on. The treatment plant is functioning.
Right. Yes.
Just
Thanks,
with,
Tim.
just with a lower, like 3 less wells.
All right, if there are no other questions, I guess we're going to discuss sewer next.
Excuse me, gentlemen, any idea how long it'll be? I've got to go to work soon. If it's going to be soon, fine, I can hang in, but otherwise I got to go to work. I didn't know it was going to take this long to be heard. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Tim, this is the water abatement under new business.
Yeah, if you'd like to take that out of time once this presentation is complete, before executive session, we can do that as well.
Yeah, but I get the feeling that Mr. Joblin needs to go soon.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably would require us to break into this presentation. Tim?
Let me just ask Matt and Ben, how long do you expect the rest of the presentation to last about?
I can get through the next slides in probably 3 minutes, something like that.
Yeah.
I'd say 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, so maybe a total of like 10 minutes, Does that work?
Okay, I'll hang in for 10 minutes, sure.
All right. Okay, let's get started then.
Okay. So for sewer, the sewer layout from what we presented to you last time is very similar. The only difference really is that we've included the $50 million project that was discussed, and because of that and the funding of that or raising additional revenues related to that, we thought a 5-year look no longer made sense from a rate plan standpoint. So we've expanded the rate plan out to 10 years, which we'll show you in a second. Just quick going through the background, rates increased 9% for FY23 and 5% for 24. Your debt service today is just over $1 million annually. Nothing was funded for FY24 capital, $300,000 for FY25. And now that we have the $50 million in there for on the capital plan, you're looking at total spending over the next 5 years of $1.2 million in retained earnings and over $51 million in additional borrowings, which once fully borrowed works out to be $2.4 million annually. So that 2.4 will get added to the 1 million today to give you a sense of what the total debt number would be annually. Here's the recent results. Same slides. These have not changed. The rightmost area is our projection for the current fiscal year of FY24, which we have as a small surplus for sewer like we did with water. And the retained earnings graph is showing a similar setup as it did for water, with the actual and the projected retained earnings now falling below the target. Here's your baseline. Again, no revenue changes or no rate changes, and does not include any capital. So just focusing on the operating piece, your retained earnings could get you through FY25, but barely. So this shows a continued need for rate action, just like it did for water. And option 1, again, a 10-year look now. So we presented a few different options, meaning kind of a different setup, whether to do rates higher now or rates higher later. And then in this particular case, we decided just to do kind of what I would consider to be the bare minimum for the near future, and then a one-time bump in order to cover the large increase in expenses that are tied to the additional debt coming on for that treatment plant, which we have is hitting in 29. And you can see 40%. Now that is something that is unlikely to happen, but we did want to show you what it would mean if you just had to do a 1-year bump to try and make up for, or to try and cover those additional expenses. And that's a good contrast to these other options. So you can see like a longer ramp up period and what that looks like to try and cover those the larger expense. So one option would be to start increasing rates at a higher clip today to raise additional revenues to build up your retained earnings, which you can clearly see by that graph up above with the blue going well above the orange, with then having enough retained earnings in theory in reserve to help you cover that additional expense, where you can see that drop off from 28 down to 29 happening when that additional expense hits. So we think if you wanted to be more aggressive on rates in the short term to build up your reserves, a plan like this would work, 10% per year over the next 5-year period, and then nominal increases from that point forward. And then this slide is kind of a little bit of the opposite, where you're not building up quite as many reserves in the short term, and therefore you do need a little bit higher increases once that additional debt comes on, including the FY30 number of 8.5, which was 2.5 on the other slide. So this just gives you a little bit of a different look. If you were to be what I would call less aggressive, even though the rate changes are fairly similar, but less aggressive over the short term, then you would need to be a little bit more aggressive later on with your rates in order to make up. Capital plan. This is what we've included. It's not as robust as the water one, but you do see that big $50 million number, which we're currently carrying it for FY28. And then the comparative slide as well, comparing bills and projected bills. So for option 1, which is a small increase in the short term, but keep in mind that there's that bigger one coming for FY29. It's $18 for the next year. But then if you think about it from a 5-year look, when that 40% would hit, it's $184 over the 5-year period. Option 2, 10% in the first year. First 5 years, $26 in year 1, $160 over the 5-year period. Option 3, 8.5% for the first 6 years, $22 for the first year, $25, and $132 over the 5 years.
Just a note here, we're jumping from $320 to almost $450 in this FY28 to 29 with the 40% increase there.
Right. So the other options show kind of like a smoother ramp up period than that 1-year jump. Yep. And Ben, back to you for this final slide. Go ahead.
Thanks, Matt. So next steps, I think we kind of already discussed this. It sounds like we're looking to pull in the town admin as well as the Board of Selectmen as well. And we kind of already discussed this with our internal team too here. So we're hoping to seek town recommendations and approval. And looks like on June 4th, the capital projects will be approved. And then for the approval of the rates, looks like this is the tentatively scheduled for June 20th. Tim, does that sound right?
Yeah, so there's a June 20th scheduled select board meeting. I'm not sure if that's 100%, but that was on their tentative schedule for meetings.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's spot on. So July 1st, the new rates will go into effect. And Mr. Almy, we do have a bullet here. So possible presentation to the Board of Selectmen. Absolutely, we're totally on board with that to push this forward and to bring more thoughts into the discussion as needed.
All right. I do have one question about the capital projects. There was some adjustment done on capital projects between the recommendations that the Public Works Board made and what actually made it onto the town warrant. Did you use what's on the town warrant or what our recommendations were? Tim, can you help with that one?
What was on the town warrant? Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
One quick question.
Before you jump in, Ron, initially when we started, we were using our projected capital, and then we revised that as the town supported some capital and can support the rest of it.
Right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ron?
Yeah, Ben, where did the $50 million come from?
I'll
That
let
was-
Tim speak to that one.
That was just a, an estimate on updating our facility here. It could be higher, it could be less, but I think if we look at flows and building an entire new facility, you're around 90 to 100 million. So if we're looking at an upgrade, we're looking to do that at somewhere in the 50 to 60% of a brand new facility.
Okay,
Right. Any other questions, board members? Any members of the public? All right, so we have a copy of this presentation. It was emailed to us. And Tim, let's have a conversation with the team, the consultant team, about how to proceed to the select board and how this fits in with the formal rate setting process. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, any other items, any other questions on this item? All right. With that, I'd like to go to new business A, water abatement. Tim, you want to introduce this?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.
Thank you, Ben.
Sampson,
Thank you,
Ben,
Matthew.
Matthew, and
thank you, guys.
Stephanie, thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll be in touch to move forward, and I'll reach out to the select board to schedule our presentation.
Sounds great. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Joblin is here. Mr. Joblin lives out on 7 Rockland Farm. He received an $18,959 water and sewer bill in January of, the property is currently serviced by a 2-inch water service, which is a commercial rate water service. And also, he also uses a sewer deduct meter for irrigation purposes, so he doesn't get charged for sewer when he is irrigating his property. The history of use for the previous 3 quarters prior to the January bill were billed as no usage, and so a minimum bill was sent over it. And we believe that when his meter endpoint was changed over to the new cellular endpoint, that the utility billing clerk pulled off the old endpoint, which saw no usage, rather than the new updated endpoint. When that was recovered, that the new meter endpoint showed a large usage, and he was billed that large sum all at once. During the 4th quarter, the correct meter was read, out of the 4 quarters. So he had 3 quarters of billing at no usage, and then get a large 4th quarter bill. Mr. Joblin requested reasoning why his bill was so high, obviously, and was requested an abatement from the water division. The water division did abate $4,406 for water and sewer at that time. Mr. Joblin is still troubled by the large balance, which was $14,563 after the abatement, and is requesting a larger abatement. I had initially requested, after I spoke to Mr. Joblin, some billing history of the property back to 2020 or 2018. So I did get billing history from 2018 to 2024. And that is I think in your packet, there's kind of a spreadsheet set up with some quarterly billing figures. All right. And Mr. Joblin, or the board, do you have any questions currently?
Yeah, if I may, thank you. First of all, I appreciate the board taking the time to hear me this morning. Between October 26th of 2023 and January 5th of 2024, I got a bill of $18,969.60. Okay, so since 2000, I got figures from the let's see, not the water board, but the building department. The average sewer and water bill since 2000 has been $2,999, call it $3,000 a year. Since 2018, the average per year is $5,341.94. Those are both excluding 2024. The figures given to me from the water department on Allen Street, the annual charges don't correlate with the figures from the collector's office. So I'm, a little confused on that. I did pay $5,000 on this bill for goodwill, to just, to show that I was not going to pay nothing. But I just, don't understand how all of a sudden something can spike so much. Nothing changes here. I water my lawn every year. It's my wife and myself living in the house. That's it. And something seems to be not right for it to spike in that fashion.
Jim, has there been an evaluation of the water meter itself?
It is, the water meter was, I believe, tested by Mr. Joblin, right? Because
Yeah.
it is a commercial meter, so.
Yeah, I had it tested. They said the water meter is functioning correctly.
All right. And did they give you any sense of the accuracy of the meter? In other words, did they run it against another meter or simply find that it was measuring water that was moving through?
I don't know what they actually did. I can certainly check that, but what I did in that house was with no water running, I went down and I looked at the water meter to make sure it was not running, and it was not running. I know that's a very informal test, but I just wanted to make sure nothing was happening.
Yeah, so the sheet that I have on is similar to what you have in your packet. It's just, I had asked for, the billing, and they sent me over the munis accounting for this project. So I pulled off each water and sewer charge in the date that it was charged back from 2018, and these are the basically the charges that Mr. Joblin, I believe, has paid through the years. So back in 2018, we only have I think 2 quarters, which was about 3486. From April 2019 to January 2020, it was about 6,200 in total bills.
But that's not what I get. That's not what I get from the billing department. 2018, I get a billing of 3138.38, 2000. Sorry.
Yeah, so 3138.38 was in December 10th of 2018, right? So I added that to the January bill as well.
in the interest of time, and I respect that, that Mr. Joplin's got to go to work. A couple of things. Tim, could you set up a discussion so you and Mr. Joplin agree on the numbers first, so we don't have to do this in front of the board? And second, could you look a little harder into why there may be a significant increase like this?
So our system currently allows for a 90-day read, so we can go back into the system and read 90 days. So the new system will, real time, we can look back as far as we have records from the new system starting, going online, and to infinity, but we can't really look at all the charges and all the usage during that period, unfortunately, to explain where the usage was. And this is one of the reasons we're moving towards the new cellular program with Ion Water, so we can keep track of records better and go back and look at the usage. And there are also parameters that can be set on large usage at times. So if you do have a leak or a large amount of water flowing, then it can be set to trigger the user. But unfortunately, we can't go back in history and look at the usage, and that's one of my struggles, and one of the struggles in the water division has had, on billing complaints. When you bill semi-annually, you're billing for 6 months, but you can only go 90 days into that once the request had been made to look at that profile. So the meter's been tested and it continues to function properly, but we don't know why this large usage was recorded in the meter.
What kind of water use is happening on this property?
The typical residential use, Mr. Joplin and his wife are the only two people that live there. And then, beyond that, I believe it's just outside irrigation. If you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Joplin.
Yes, that is correct.
And you've got a 2-inch meter?
Yes, that's correct. And I'm told that the 2-inch meter is commercial only for sewer, but not for water.
Why is there a 2-inch meter instead of?
Yeah,
I,
right.
I really don't have an answer for that, and I've asked the same question. I've been here 37 years, and I don't know why it was put in.
So when a house is constructed, a plumber does a calculation on the fixtures and the usage, including if they are planning to use irrigation, and sizes the service size based on those calculations. So and then the meter is sized based on that request.
And I'm told that an 1.5 meter or an inch meter, it would not make much of a difference in the extra charge for the water.
Yeah, that's not the issue. I was trying to figure out what the water use on the property would be, how it might spike. In other words, if you were irrigating a number of trees in an orchard or half a golf course or something like that, I just was surprised to hear it was a 2-inch meter, and from Mr. Alves' question, I bet he's thinking the same thing. All right.
And then in my research, I believe I found that you would request or propose putting in an irrigation well at some point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I tried to put in a well, but it's brackish water, so
Oh, okay. I saw the request. I saw the plans for that in my research. I just didn't know why the project didn't continue. But thank you for the information.
Right. Well, Tim,
Yeah, may I meet with Tim? I'm happy to do that.
Yes, if you would, please. This does not, there's something about this that simply doesn't make sense, I guess is the way to put it. And I'd like, if you don't mind, to spend a little bit more time with the staff and see if you can figure out some kind of plausible explanation.
Yeah, I think Mr. Joblin, myself, and Steve we've all spent time with the collector's office, the utility billing clerks, with each other. I spent a lot of time speaking to Mr. Joblin. So yeah, we can definitely schedule to sit down one more time and go
Yeah.
over this.
I would appreciate that. Maybe if we can get together with, all together with, Mr. Sullivan as well,
Yes, absolutely.
that would be great.
All right. So we will continue this item until you can bring it back to us, Tim.
Yes.
Great.
All right.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Have a good day.
There's something that's not right here, and I don't know what it is. And I'm uncomfortable taking any action until we better understand what may or may not have happened.
Could I just ask one question? How large an area do you irrigate?
It's a big lawn, but it's been the same big lawn since 1987.
And this water use happened what, in the fall, Tim?
This happened over a year.
Over a year.
This is over a year. So basically, throughout the year, Mr. Joblin was only billed a minimum bill of zero usage, which I think that basically here I think it was in May of 2023, it was $171.18.
Oh, okay.
July of 23, it was 178.
Which also
40.
makes no sense.
Right. And then in October 2023, it was $178.74. And then what I said, what I believe the correct endpoint was read, the usage was very large, and this bill was sent out. And they reduced it by the minimum bills. They subtracted the minimum bills out, but it was still an enormous bill.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
All right.
Why? Okay, I'll let you guys talk about. I don't understand why the minimum bill. Why was there no reading?
So a lot of times, it doesn't really red flag or trigger a review to the utility billing clerks, if there's no usage, because, a lot of times, if homeowners go, say, to Florida for the winter, they will get no usage, but they still get a minimum bill for the meter and everything in the house, and they get a minimum bill.
Okay.
For the size of the service, but they don't get charged the usage portion. And
And then at the end point, you're up to 18,969. It's
yes, yeah.
And-
So there's a minimum tier, right? There's a minimum usage tier.
is there possible there was a leak in the system somewhere?
I don't believe so, and that's why I personally tested to see if the meter was running when all the water was off, and the meter did not run.
Did somebody pressurize the system to see if there's a leak? I mean, because you're getting these numbers, so obviously you had the meter tested and the water went through the meter. That's the biggest point, right?
Yeah.
So I guess ultimately you have to determine where is it coming from. Do you have a leak? Is it still leaking now? Or, you have zero readings for 3 terms, and all of a sudden you have a 14,000 reading.
But if there was a leak before the meter would be less. The reading would be less, not more, correct?
Could be after the meter, right? I don't
it-
know the situation, so. But these readings are coming from your meter that you had tested,
Yes.
that they're telling you it's functioning properly. That's the big ticket here.
Right. I may get it tested again, just for,
Maybe Steve has some knowledge on this. I don't know the whole situation out there, so something's not right. I totally agree, but if it's, go ahead, Steve.
I just want to say that, again, we changed out the cellular endpoint. what happened was the endpoint that was installed at the beginning when we first installed them had to be replaced. So at one point, they did it in the billing office in the town hall, the tax collector's office. They were reading the wrong endpoint. They weren't reading the new endpoint, so that's why this happened. So when we finally got them to read the correct endpoint, we got the read of whatever that read was at that time. I don't have that number in front of me, but we had the same read for 3 billing cycles, and then we got the correct read after they put this meter into the system correctly. And that's what came up with this read that caused this bill to be $18,000. So the water went through the meter. The meter was tested by Mr. Joblin, because it is his responsibility to test it if it has a problem with it. And I stand behind the usage. The water went through that meter. So that's all I have to say. And I can meet Mr. Joblin and explain that with him. I have no problem.
All right. So, Mr. Joblin, is there any indication you had, say, a running toilet or some kind of a leak that you were unaware of? An outdoor faucet that was not shut off all the way, whatever?
No. I mean, that happened in 2021. There was a hose on the beach that ran, and that bill went up, and I know why it went up. But no, I mean, we live here. It's not that big a house. I'd know if that was happening.
All right. Well, Tim, if you and the collector, Mr. Joblin and Steve can get together and see if there's any plausible additional information you could give us, and then we'll continue this to our next meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Tim.
I
Please
will.
hold up when you have.
Thank you, Mr. Joblin.
Yes,
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
reach out to
Joblin.
you and once I see everybody's availability to meet.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
All right. Let's see. Let's go back to the top or where we were. We have on our agenda an executive session, and I would like a motion from one of the board members to move to go into executive session to consider complaint or issue with an employee and reconvene afterwards in open session.
I'll
Do I
make
have
a
a
motion.
motion?
I'll make a motion to move to executive session.
All right. So it moved by Mr. LaBelle, seconded by Mr. Alves. We'll have a roll call. Mr. LaBelle,
Aye.
Mr. Alves, Chairman votes aye. So we'll go into executive session and we will reconvene. All right. So we have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, seconded by Mr. Alves to reconvene in open session. Mr. Alves, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, so we'll go back into open session. Okay, I see everybody we need for the next item. Next item is old business B, approval roof recharge system fee update.
Yeah, so in the previous meeting, the board approved policy for roof recharge. But a part of the roof recharge is that one of our engineers will go out, evaluate, do a soil evaluation with the contractor on site. But there were no fees associated with that in the past. So we evaluated that, and the Board of Health currently charges $240 for a soil evaluation and perk test for a minimum of 3 hours for them to be on site. This always includes a minimum of 2 soil evaluations per septic area, and and perk tests. We don't do perk tests currently for the infiltration systems. We may do a falling head test in the future, but we don't currently. So we were looking at a fee of $150 for the soil evaluation for a maximum of 3 hours, and then $50 an hour after that. And then for the installation of the infiltration system, the contractor will have to pull a drainage permit. And in past meetings, it was approved that the drainage permit, along with the sewer and water contractor permits, were $100. So the permit to install the infiltration system itself for the construction and the inspection of that would be $100.
All right, so what do you need as excuse me, do we have any questions?
I have one.
Go ahead, Ron.
Just a quick question. So we're gonna inspect the soil evaluation, is that correct, and permeability test? Or
So
just the soil evaluation, Tim?
So currently, we just do a soil evaluation. We don't do a permeability test
Okay.
currently, but we may in the future.
So is anybody in the town qualified to be a soil evaluator, or is
Yes.
anyone A certified?
Yes.
Okay,
All right, any other questions? Okay, Tim, what do you need as a motion from us?
Just an approval of the $150 for the soil evaluation permit.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the $150 for the solubility test.
Do I have a motion by Mr. LaBelle? Do I have a second?
second,
Second by Mr. Alves. All in favor of the motion, Mr. Alves?
aye,
Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, approved. Next item on the agenda is new business, item B, approval of annual bids, DSI.
Yes. So for DSI Phase 1, in your package, there we had bids from traffic signs and associated materials. The lowest bidder was Permaline Corp. Of Easton, Massachusetts. Tree work, the lowest bidder, G. Bourne Knowles and Company out of Fairhaven, Massachusetts. Catch basin cleaning, the lowest bidder and only bidder was Leo Vigent Company out of Rochester, Massachusetts. Manholes, catch basins, concrete blocks, bricks, cement, catch basins, manholes, precast, complete, plain and reinforced concrete storm drain point and the PVC storm drain pipe had no bidders for contracts. So we'll continue to order those as we see fit. But we would like the approval of the number 4, 5, and 6 for Phase 1. And then on Phase 2, surfacing, the lowest bidder was Seal Coating Incorporated, DBA Indus, out of Braintree, Massachusetts. For the Super Pave specification bid, PJ Keating was a low bidder out of Lunenburg, Massachusetts. And for Cold in Place Recycling, Seal Coating Incorporated, DBA Indus, out of Braintree, Massachusetts was a low bidder. And that is DSI Phase 1 and 2 annual bids.
All right, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the annual bids as stipulated by Tim.
Motion by Mr. LaBelle. Do I have a second?
second,
Second by Mr. Alves. Roll call vote, Mr. Alves,
aye,
LaBelle,
Aye.
chair votes aye. All right, next item is annual bids, water pollution polymer.
So we have for the water pollution control, we have a polymer bid for FY25, and the low bidder is Polydyne Incorporated out of Riceboro, Georgia. And the only bidder.
Any questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the, annual bids for Polymer 2025.
Motion by Mr. LaBelle. Do I have a second?
Second,
By Mr. Alves. Mr. LaBelle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Alves, how do you vote?
aye,
Votes aye. It's approved. Next item is annual bids for water and sewer type K copper.
For a type K copper bid, the low bidder was EJ Prescott Incorporated out of Brockton, Massachusetts. And that is the only.
All right, do I have any questions?
we're still using copper, huh?
We are. From the main to the street, we require copper.
And can you afford it?
Yeah, barely. And there are, we allow, the SDR 9 HDPE water service lines for on the property from the curb stop to the house. Sometimes developers will specify copper, but we do require copper from the main to the curb stop.
Why is that, Tim?
It's just what we've done in the past. Initially when the board approved to use HDPE service lines, it was a policy for any lines over 100 feet to, as the HDP lines came in 300 to 500 foot sections for 1 inch. So it eliminated couplings in the services for long services. So the board approved that, and then through the years, we started allowing it for shorter services, and we've continued to allow it. So if in the future the board would like us to bring in a policy to allow HDPE from the main to the curb stop, we can revisit that. Is that what you do in Mansfield?
Yes, we do, yes.
All right. Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the annual bids for type K copper.
Motion by Mr. LaBelle. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by Mr. Alves. Roll call vote. Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Alves?
aye,
Votes aye. Item is approved. Committee updates. All right, well, you will recall that at our last meeting that we sent a memo to the board and to the Charter Review Committee asking them to delay consideration of the proposed change to hiring the Public Works Director. The Select Board voted to move that item onto the annual town meeting. In other words, they voted not to delay it. So it will be on the annual town meeting. I've had at least 2 phone calls asking me about that item, and what I have taken upon myself to do is to simply forward our memo to those people because I think the memo speaks for itself. The process includes a charter amendment process at this level, includes an approval at town meeting to put the item on the next election, which I believe is in spring 2025. So it's a 2-step process. That's what I have for that. On another note, I've had conversation with the chair of the Waterways Commission, and they are interested in a higher level of cooperation on stormwater and other water quality issues that affect the harbor and by extension other places along the coast that they have an interest in, including Slocum's estuary And so I will report back to the board. They have a meeting, I believe, in early June, which I will attend and field any questions and bring them back to this board. That's it for me. Any other items from the other board members?
No.
All right. Next item is the director update.
So last month we had Green Up Day for Arbor Day and Earth Day. The town typically picks up for 2 weekends for residents who are contributing to cleaning up along the shoulders of the road or taking land and they'll stipulate a location and our solid waste staff will pick up bags that are donated by our contractor. This year we had a reduction in tonnage that was picked up. We picked up 0.26 tons from 2 weekends. It was April 23rd and April 29th. Last year we actually picked up 0.6 tons, 61 tons, and over those 2 weekends. So, but people were out there doing some work, cleaning up the trash in the shoulders and areas that they saw fit. So we did gather some trash and we thank the residents for that. Next we have just an update on our town meeting is June 4th. So we will be there. I'll be presenting on the warrant article to allow the purchase of the 200 acres of aquifer land that we've had multiple grants and we've been working on to purchase that land. We're currently working on a conservation restriction. It's at the state level for review of revisions by town council, and hopefully we'll have that within a week to go before the select board for approval. Vacancy updates. We recently interviewed a candidate for a driver position who has a CDL. I also have the mower, the G license as well as a hoisting license. So we're hopefully we can move forward and get them working, get them hired, and get them working. We also have another employee that's planning on retiring in July, who also has a CDL, and a couple more in the fall. So we're running out of drivers, and we need help. We've asked for help with either incentives or reclassifying the drivers, which I will bring back again during the hopefully fall to early winter negotiations for the labor union going into FY26.
Well, when do you expect to recruit for the additional drivers, Tim?
We have postings currently on the website on Indeed. I have to refresh in the post to the Bay State roads. So we do have postings out there, and we're trying to recruit.
And what's the status of incentives?
There currently are no incentives. The administrator proposed a new health plan, a high deductible health plan that's I believe a 70-30 split, which is helpful for new recruits because the premium is a bit lower than the existing plans, which that's always a sticking point when you're in an interview and you give them the costs of the health insurance and they cringe.
So how many drivers are we down, Tim?
I think about 10, 11.
10 drivers. And we're posted out.
We
and
are,
can't-
yeah.
We can't find anybody.
No.
And
So
is
what-
HR, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
is HR doing this or are we doing it inside? I remember we had people working outside their job
Yeah,
description. and
So
that
HR,
happens right away.
so HR posted the position, posts the advertisement on Indeed. I usually post it on Bay State Roads and then, we'll post it, in-house if needed. Basically, Jen will post that. And I believe, the personnel also posts it on the website.
Tim, if you were going to use incentives,
Yes.
what would be your recommendation?
Well, I'd say we don't have incentives. We created an incentive last year in the budget to help anyone that doesn't have a CDL. So either current employees or new staff that are looking to get their CDL and come in, we can hire them as a laborer, give them six months to get their license, and we will reimburse up to just over $2,500 towards that license. And we've had some interest. We have one employee, current employee, who's a laborer going for that. He's, I believe, in his 13th week for a CDL training. We've had a couple outside applicants come in, but nobody has accepted the position to come in as a laborer and then to move forward getting their license in 6 months.
Tim, do we know how our wage and benefit structure stacks up against the, for want of a better term, the towns around?
I collect any advertisements, especially for this position. For other municipalities, it may not be an adjacent municipality, but we're on the lower end of a lot of the advertisements that I see.
So it then, by extension, if we can't increase salary and benefits because of both the town and the contracts in place,
Mhm.
then the only way to make these positions more attractive is some kind of additional incentives.
Correct. And, we do look at experience, because, the starting pay is pretty low. So we look at experience and we do have, the opportunity to negotiate a starting step. But we have other staff in lower steps that we can't move them because they're already in a step in the union. So we don't have a lot of leeway in.
You have the leeway up to the minimum step,
Correct,
correct?
correct. Yes,
So if you have a driver who's at a step 3, you
Yes.
could hire someone at a step 3.
correct.
All right, so what would be the lowest step you have in your current job description in CDLs?
We currently have 2 that should be getting a step to a 3 in July, as of July 1st. So once
So
those
as
steps,
of July, you could offer that incentive.
yes.
All right. And have you had any discussions about some kind of a sign-on bonus or something like that with human resources?
I have, and it usually gets referred to the town administrator, and it doesn't get approved.
All right. When does the new structure for administering the town temporarily take place?
I believe it's July, maybe July 15th. But prior to that, I believe, yeah, I'd have to refer that to a select board vote.
Oh.
They probably vote on that.
All right. Well, let's
So you recommend hiring and then they deny it? How is that?
No, we recommend incentive like a sign-on bonus.
Okay,
Yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah, I was thinking what it would take to revisit that issue, given there's a change in administration going on.
Yeah, I haven't stopped, so I'll continue to,
All right.
to
Yeah, if you
revisit
would,
that.
yeah,
Well,
continue to,
that meeting I mentioned earlier, Tim, if you recall, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, but the town administrator thought it was a great idea.
To,
Well, what changed his mind from then till now?
well, we're going to have a different structure in town within weeks. Is that right, Tim? When does that start? The town administrator will no longer be the town administrator. We'll have the assistant town administrator and
What?
the collector.
so, yeah, so I believe, you know, the select board will vote on, you know, setting an acting, administrator for the interim during the search, but I don't know when that time will start.
So who pushed the change in the charter? Was it Mr. McGinnis when he's not going to be here, or was it the select board, with all due respect?
It's-
Because Mr. McGinnis isn't going to be here anymore, right? So
Hmm.
who's pushing this change, this big change? But
So there's a charter committee.
Okay.
That pushed this, that put this on the warrant. And it is supported by a few of the select.
I was going to say,
Select
who's on that committee?
Yeah.
But
Well, as it turns out, two of the board members were on the committee, and there was a member from the planning board and someone from schools, but no one from Public Works.
yeah,
Since the last election, the representative from the planning board is now seated on the select board. So 3 of the select board members were actually on that committee. So,
I get it.
And the move to do this was only announced to the Board of Public Works 3 weeks ago?
in April, just before our last meeting.
Yeah, okay, April.
Yeah, and in fact, it wasn't actually announced. I heard a rumor and I had to ask. And it was apparently on the Charter Review Committee's agenda as a specific action, at least as far back as January. Okay.
Yeah, there was no notification to the Board of Public Works or me.
Yeah, right. All right. Anything else, Tim?
Just an update on you know, further on vacancies, the utility billing clerk, I mentioned it previously. I'd taken another position in town, so we were sharing duties on, so the billing clerk was working Monday and Friday at a billing clerk position, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the building department. Well, I guess due to building department constraints, we're told she can no longer share that position, so she's full-time in the building department now, and she'll be spending some overtime hours working on the utility billing. And they had 2 candidates for utility billing clerks that had applied not in town but from outside. So they're looking at hiring at minimum 1 and then reposting the position for the second, and so we can get 2 clerks in. And then
Can they hire, if they have 2 interested candidates, can they hire 2 at once?
I believe because they only posted 1 position, they can only hire 1, but they'd have to repost that position. If they had posted for 2 positions, they could have.
Okay. Anything else, Tim?
That is it.
I have one question that I think I brought up a couple of meetings ago on the status of where do we stand, where's the town stand with the PE, someone taking a test, or have you done some research on that, Tim?
Yeah, currently nobody's taking the test, and again, I have to work more with my staff to see if there's interest. There's definitely incentive that we can offer. I've spoken to the town administrator on this, and even though he won't be here much longer, but he was positive that we could offer an incentive for anybody who does pass a test and obtain their PE.
Tim, do we have an open position?
We have an open associate engineer position currently, yes.
Can that be converted to a PE and then recruit for it?
It can,
Would you look into that, please?
absolutely.
I have a question regarding that. That was to remain vacant because of the recent hire, was it not?
The original, my original plan was to fund the assistant director position using the associate and not fund one of the associate engineering positions. But when I submitted that to the town administrator, he actually said, no, keep both positions. You're gonna need the engineering position. So
With
keep
all
them
due
both funded.
respect, I think the board voted on one or the other. So again, Mr. McGinnis is not gonna be town administrator anymore. He's still everyone's boss, I guess, or your boss, but you know, I don't know whose boss is who. So I think the board, us three, Robert, Ron, and myself voted one position or the other. And I think there's meeting minutes back in the day. And that was, I believe, a requirement for a PE. So I'm not quite sure where the board's going with this and respectfully disagree. So we're going in the wrong direction.
I think it would be worth bringing it back for discussion. So, Tim, would you look into what the history was and then what our options are moving forward?
I will.
Because I think however we get there, it's worth having a PE on staff. And so we need to figure out how we got to where we are today and then decide how to move forward. All right. And we do have a new town administrator, or we will. And it seems to me that whatever we want to do, we need to push it. All right. All right. Any other questions from the board?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion from Mr. Alves to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second,
I have a second from Mr. LaBelle. Roll call. Mr. Alves,
Aye.
Mr. LaBelle,
aye.
chair votes aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
They are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Have a nice day, everyone.